My brother Nathan and I grew up in a quiet neighborhood just outside of Maple Hollow, a small town where nothing ever really happened. It was one of those places where people left their doors unlocked, and the loudest sound at night was just the wind rustling through the pine trees. Our parents often worked late, so it wasn't unusual for us to be home alone. I was 14 at the time, and Nathan was 15. We were both way more focused on our video games than the strange quietness outside our old wooden house. It all started late on a rainy Thursday evening. Thunder was rolling lazily in the distance while Nathan sat in the living room, completely absorbed in his game. I was upstairs, just scrolling through my phone. The tapping began sometime after 10 o'clock. It wasn't loud at first, just these faint little clicks against the back window downstairs. I tried to ignore it for a minute, thinking maybe it was the rain or a loose branch hitting the glass. But then it came again. Sharper this time, slower, rhythmic. I went to the top of the stairs and called out to Nathan, asking him if he heard it. He didn't even look up from the screen, just mumbled something about the storm. But the sound didn't stop. Every few seconds, there was another deliberate tap. I walked down to the kitchen, trying to convince myself I wasn't scared. The lights were dim, and the storm outside was casting these shifting, creepy shadows through the curtains. When I reached the back door, I could see the outline of a man through the thin fabric. He was tall, motionless, just facing the window. My heart just froze. For a moment, I couldn't move. I thought maybe it was one of our neighbors, but the shape didn't move or call out. It just stood there, one arm raised slightly, almost like it was leaning forward. I whispered for Nathan to come. When he finally joined me, he frowned, thinking I was just messing with him. He yanked the curtain aside in one quick motion. The man outside was real. His face was pressed right up against the glass, his eyes wide and unblinking. His hair was completely soaked from the rain, and he had this weird, uneven smile on his face, like someone who had forgotten how to make the expression. Nathan stumbled backward and yelled, demanding to know what the man wanted. The stranger didn't speak. He just lifted one hand and pointed directly at the door handle. His lips moved silently, forming words we couldn't hear, but I could tell what he was mouthing. He was saying, "Let me in." Nathan immediately grabbed the phone to call 911, but the landline was dead. The storm must have knocked it out. I ran to grab my cell from upstairs, but before I even reached the steps, there was a loud metallic clatter from the side of the house. The power flickered, and then the lights went completely dark. We stood there in the pitch black, breathing fast, just listening to the rain hammering down on the roof. Then came the sound of movement. Slow, careful footsteps along the porch. The back door rattled, followed by the unmistakable squeal of the side window trying to open. Nathan whispered for me to hide. We both ducked behind the couch as the noise grew louder. Something scraped against the window frame, and then silence. Complete silence. We waited, terrified to move, barely daring to breathe. After what felt like an hour, I slowly peeked over the top of the couch. The window was halfway open, the curtain blowing in from the wind. No one was there. We thought maybe he had left, maybe the storm had scared him off. But when Nathan stood up to check, he froze mid-step. He pointed to the glass door. I turned to look. There, pressed against the inside of the glass, this time, was a muddy handprint. The man had gotten in. We bolted upstairs and locked ourselves in my room, pushing a heavy dresser against the door. We could hear faint creaks coming from below us, floorboards, shifting, slow movements through the living room. He was walking through our house. At one point, we heard his voice, soft and raspy, calling our names. We never told him who we were. The police arrived nearly 40 minutes later, after we finally managed to text our neighbor for help. When they searched the house, no one was inside. The only sign that anyone had been there was that single handprint and the muddy footprints leading from the office window. But there was something else the officers found that night, something they didn't tell us until the next morning. In the mud right beneath the window outside, they discovered another set of footprints. They were smaller. They didn't belong to the man. There had been someone else out there with him, watching. Thanks for listening to my story. If you have a chilling experience you'd like to share, let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more strange tales. Stay safe out there. When my cousin Leo invited me to spend a weekend at his family's hunting cabin, I didn't think twice about it. He'd been talking about it for months, how peaceful it was, how clear the lake water looked in the morning, how quiet the woods were at night. After a long, miserable stretch, working double shifts at the auto shop, I needed the break. I didn't know then that peace was the last thing we'd find out there. We left early on a Friday afternoon, just the two of us. The road out to the cabin wound through miles of thick forest, the kind where trees pressed close together and sunlight barely reached the ground. It felt like driving into another world. By the time we reached the cabin, the sun was already dipping behind the hills, painting everything in a dim orange haze. The cabin looked older than I expected. 2 rooms, cracked wooden siding, no electricity except for a gas generator that Leo's uncle kept out back. When we stepped inside, it smelled like damp wood and something faintly metallic. Still, it felt private and quiet. The nearest town was nearly an hour away. We spent the first night sitting by the fire, swapping stories, drinking cheap beer. Around midnight, we finally turned in for the night. I lay on the small cot near the front window, while Leo took the bed against the far wall. It must have been around 2 in the morning when I woke to a strange scraping sound outside. It was soft at first, like branches brushing against a wall. Then came a slow, deliberate drag metal against wood. I sat up, listening. Leo was still asleep, breathing heavy. The sound came again, closer this time, moving along the outer wall, toward the window beside me. I reached for the flashlight on the table, but before I could turn it on, the noise stopped. Silence filled the room. Then, faintly, a whisper so low I almost thought I imagined it. "Let me in." The words were slurred, hoarse, and coming from right outside the window. My chest tightened. I didn't move, didn't even breathe. I thought maybe it was Leo trying to mess with me. But when I looked over, he was still out cold. Slowly, I turned my head toward the window. There, pressed against the dirty glass, was a pale face, eyes wide open. No expression, no movement, just staring. I jolted back and shouted for Leo. He jumped up instantly, grabbing his rifle. By the time we looked again, the face was gone. We stepped outside, scanning the dark woods with our flashlights. But there was nothing, just mist curling between the trees and the sound of water dripping from the roof. We locked up tighter than before and stayed awake the rest of the night, whispering theories neither of us believed. When morning came, we found muddy footprints near the window, leading from the woods straight to the porch and stopping there, like the person had vanished into thin air. We should have left right then, but Leo convinced me to stay one more night. He said whoever it was probably wandered off or got lost in the dark. I wanted to believe him. That second night, the forest was dead, silent. No crickets, no owls, not even the rustle of wind. Around 1 in the morning, I heard the generator cut out. The lights dimmed until we were left in total darkness. Leo cursed and went out to restart it, while I stayed behind, clutching the flashlight. A few minutes passed. I heard the door creak open again, footsteps coming inside. I sighed with relief. Got it working. I asked, no answer. The footsteps stopped just behind me. I turned around and shined the light. The beam hit the empty doorway. Leo wasn't there. Panic surged through me. I ran to the door and shouted his name, my voice echoing through the trees. Somewhere deep in the forest, I heard a single gunshot, followed by a long, wet, dragging sound. Then silence again. I locked myself inside and waited, heart pounding so hard I thought it would break my ribs. When morning finally came, I opened the door and stepped out. There was no sign of Leo. The generator was still off, his rifle gone. The only thing left behind was a trail of blood leading from the woods to the lake and, in the mud beside it, a single, barefoot footprint that wasn't his. They never found Leo. I tried to tell the police what happened, but they said no one had lived in that cabin for over 20 years. The family, Leo claimed owned it, had all died in a fire, and yet someone had been there, someone who wanted to be let in. I was 20 years old when I started working night shifts at the Old Pine Motel, a small, crumbling place off the interstate that mostly served truckers and drift The kind of place that never had working ice machines and always smelled faintly of mildew. The manager, Mr. Hayward, hired me because I lived close and didn't ask questions. My job was simple. Man the front desk from midnight until 6, clean up the lobby, and handle late check-ins. Most nights were dead quiet, just the hum of the vending machine and the occasional car pulling into the gravel lot. But there was one rule that Hayward drilled into every employee: never rent out room 103. When I asked why, he just gave me a tired look and said, "It's out of service. Don't worry about it." I didn't press. Everyone needs an easy paycheck. The first few nights went smoothly. A few truckers came in. A couple arguing guests left early, but nothing strange. Then, on my 5th night, the phone behind the counter rang at exactly 2:14 a.m. The caller ID showed room 103. I froze. That room was supposed to be locked, unused for months. I picked up slowly, my hand trembling. "Front desk," I said. For a moment, all I heard was static. Then, faintly, a woman's voice, soft, shaky. "Please, can you send someone? There's someone in my room." I swallowed hard. "Ma'am, which room are you in?" "Room 103, she whispered. The line went dead. I told myself it had to be a glitch or some old wiring issue. Still, I grabbed the master key and flashlight and walked down the narrow hallway. The carpet squished under my shoes, and the buzzing fluorescent lights flickered above me. When I reached room 103, the door was closed. No light underneath. I turned the handle, locked dot, but then, from inside, I heard a soft, muffled sob. My skin crawled. I knocked once. "Hello, are you okay?" The sobbing stopped. Then, slowly, a single knock came back from the other side of the door. That was enough for me. I backed away, returned to the desk, and called Mr. Hayward. He didn't sound surprised, just annoyed. "I told you not to go near that room. Leave it alone. I'll deal with it in the morning." Then he hung up. I didn't sleep at all the next day. The woman's voice kept replaying in my head. By my next shift, I had almost convinced myself it had been a prank. But around 2 a.m., the phone rang again. Room 103. This time, I didn't answer. I let it ring until it stopped. When it did, I heard something else, a faint scraping sound coming from down the hall, like someone dragging their nails along the wall as they walked. It moved slowly from door to door until it stopped at the lobby. Then came 3 soft knocks at the glass entrance door. I turned the flashlight toward it, but the glare from inside reflected too much. I could only see a silhouette, a woman, standing perfectly still, head slightly tilted. I froze. Then, without warning, the lobby phone rang again. The same number, room 103. The sound of the phone and the faint tapping at the glass filled the air. When I finally got the courage to look again, the figure outside was gone. Morning came, and Mr. Hayward showed up as usual. I told him what happened, my voice shaking. He sighed and led me to a small storage room in the back. On one of the shelves sat an old motel ledger, its pages yellowed. He flipped to an entry from 1987. Room 103. Marla Dean, checked in alone. Reported a break-in at 2:14 a.m. The clerk on duty never responded. Found deceased the next morning. I felt sick. "You mean the call?" He nodded. "Happens every few months. You just have to ignore it." I quit that night. Couldn't even bring myself to collect my last paycheck. But sometimes, when I drive past the old highway, I swear I can still see the faint orange glow of that lobby light flickering in the dark dot. And if I ever stay quiet long enough in the car, I can still hear the phone ringing from somewhere deep in my mind, steady, patient, waiting for someone to pick up.